Marcus slid the folder across the dining table with deliberate care, aligning it squarely in front of me as if the physical neatness of the gesture could somehow transfer credibility to what lay inside. His movements were controlled, practiced, the kind you develop when you've replayed a conversation in your head dozens of times before finally having it. His voice carried a tone of reluctant responsibility, the sound of someone who didn't want to say these things, but felt morally obligated to do so. He told me the restaurant was losing money fast, that the situation had gone beyond concern and crossed into inevitability. If we didn't act now, he said, there would be nothing left to save. He spoke about Dad's estate as if it were already halfway gone, drained by time, misfortune, and the lingering effects of the pandemic. Costs were up everywhere: food, labor, utilities. Revenues were down, customers weren't spending the way they used to. He said he'd done everything he could to keep the doors open out of respect for Dad's memory, even covering losses from his own pocket. But he couldn't do it anymore. No one could. The numbers didn't lie. Patricia sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched, her posture carefully composed. She nodded at the right moments, pressed a tissue to her eyes, and sighed softly as Marcus talked about closing the restaurant my father had built with his own hands. She didn't add facts or opinions. She didn't need to. Her role was emotional reinforcement, grief made visible, agreement made silent. The unspoken message was clear. We've accepted this. You should too. Marcus pushed the pen toward me. Sign over your share, he said. Let me handle the liquidation. If we do it right, we can sell the building, the equipment, the liquor license. You'll walk away with something, maybe 200,000. If we wait, there will be nothing. I picked up the pen. I had no reason not to trust him. Marcus had worked at Morty's his entire adult life. He knew the staff, the vendors, the rhythms of the business. I lived 3 states away, building a career that kept me busy and distant. When Dad got sick, Marcus took on even more responsibility. When Dad died 18 months earlier, it felt natural that Marcus would continue running things. Equal ownership, unequal involvement. It made sense. I looked down at the documents, profit, and loss statements showing steady monthly losses, projections pointing toward bankruptcy within 6 months, expense reports filled with line items that looked painfully familiarizing: food costs, higher wages, insurance premiums. Everything aligned with the narrative Marcus was selling. It was logical, plausible, reasonable, and yet something inside me hesitated. It wasn't a red flag so much as a quiet discomfort, the feeling you get when a story fits too neatly, when every loose end is already tied up before you've had a chance to question it. My father's voice surfaced uninvited, steady and unmistakable. Never sign anything without understanding it completely. He'd said it often, especially when I started law school. He'd warned me that family relationships didn't eliminate self-interest. They just made people less guarded about exploiting trust. I set the pen down. I need time, I said. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He masked it quickly, but I saw it. He hadn't expected resistance, not real resistance. He argued briefly. Time was expensive. Delays would cost us. But he didn't push hard. Pushing would have raised suspicion. He was counting on my exhaustion, my distance, my desire to believe him. That night, alone in my hotel room, I went through every page again. I checked totals, compared months. Read footnotes. Everything looked professional, clean, convincing, but the discomfort didn't fade. If anything, it grew. The losses were consistent in a way real losses rarely are. Decline usually comes in waves. One bad month, one good, another worse. This was smooth, predictable, almost scripted. The next morning, I called a forensic auditor. Sandra Okono listened without interrupting as I explained the situation. When I finished, she didn't express shock or outrage. She simply said she saw cases like this more often than people realized. Family businesses were especially vulnerable because oversight was replaced by trust. One sibling handled operations, the other assumed honesty. When I asked her if she thought Marcus was stealing, she didn't accuse him outright. Instead, she pointed out discrepancies. Public records suggested the property's value had increased, not declined. Health inspection reports described busy dining rooms and strong compliance. Online reviews mentioned long waits on weekends. None of that matched a restaurant supposedly on the brink of collapse. Getting the real books wasn't easy. Sandra subpoenaed bank records, credit card processor statements, vendor invoices. She interviewed former employees discreetly, asking about customer volume, staffing levels, and recent renovations. She reconstructed the business piece by piece, building a financial picture Marcus had never intended me to see. After 3 weeks, she spread the documents across my dining room table. The restaurant is profitable, she said. Strongly profitable year over year growth above average margins. Your brother has been investing in marketing and renovations. The business is healthier now than it was before your father died. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Then where is the money? She showed me the transfers, monthly payments leaving the operating account, routed through shell companies, eventually landing in Patricia's boutique, consulting fees, design services. Marketing materials, vague descriptions, plausible invoices. Over 3 years, more than $840,000. My brother hadn't been trying to save the restaurant. He'd been bleeding it dry. The family meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon, carefully timed and deliberately framed. Marcus called it a discussion about next steps, but everyone in the room understood what it really was: a final push, a moment of collective pressure designed to corner me into signing. He invited our mother, our aunt and uncle, cousins I barely spoke to anymore. Even Patricia's parents were there, seated close enough to hear everything. Marcus expected me to arrive alone. Instead, I walked in with Sandra and 3 bankers' boxes filled with documentation. The room fell silent as I placed them on the table. Marcus asked what they were, irritation breaking through his rehearsed calm. I told him they contained the real financial records of Morty's, not the statements he'd shown me, the actual books. He laughed at first, dismissive, confident. Said I was confused, said I didn't understand how restaurants worked, said I was being dramatic. I opened the first box. I laid out the bank statements, the profit summaries, the transfer logs. When I said the restaurant had made $340,000 in profit the previous year alone, the color drained from his face. When I traced the money flowing into Patricia's boutique, the room shifted from disbelief to horror. My mother looked at Marcus, searching his face for reassurance. "Marcus," she asked quietly, "is this true?" He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any confession. That was when she fainted. Chaos followed. Chairs scraped, voices rose. Someone called her name. Uncle Richard helped lower her to the floor, while Aunt Maria demanded explanations. Patricia stood abruptly and tried to leave. Sandra blocked her path, producing invoices signed in Patricia's handwriting. Shell companies registered jointly, transfers requiring dual approval. This wasn't a mistake, Sandra said flatly. This was coordinated fraud. Marcus finally stopped pretending. He said the restaurant should have been his alone. That he'd worked there for decades while I built a life elsewhere. That Dad had been sentimental, blind to fairness. That I didn't deserve half of something I hadn't helped run. He said he earned the money. I told him earning effort didn't entitle him to theft. The family fractured instantly. Some demanded accountability. Others clung to denial. My mother begged me to handle it privately, to protect the family name. I refused. Fraud didn't become less criminal because the criminal was my brother. The legal process lasted 8 months. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus settled. He surrendered his share, agreed to restitution, resigned permanently, accepted a restraining order. Patricia's boutique collapsed under bankruptcy when the funds were deemed stolen. Criminal charges followed: probation, community service, records that would never disappear. My mother said I destroyed my brother. I said he destroyed himself. Taking over Morty's was exhausting and healing all at once. I hired new management, installed oversight, reviewed every financial document personally. Staff admitted they'd suspected something was wrong but felt powerless. Without the theft, profits surged, expansion followed naturally. One location became two, then three, then five. Marcus reached out years later asking for reconciliation. I declined anything beyond civility. Trust doesn't regenerate on request. Today, my father's name is on every door. His photograph hangs on every wall. His advice lives with me daily. The pen I almost used to sign everything away sits in a display case in my office, a reminder of how close I came to losing it all. I didn't win because I was smarter. I won because I paused, because I questioned, because I chose to investigate instead of trust blindly. That hesitation saved $840,000. It saved my father's legacy. And it taught me a truth I'll never forget. Family can betray you more completely than strangers because they count on your trust to do it.